I want to spend a bit of time focusing on the GSE's current multifamily programs, which serve a critical market role, certainly in a state like New Jersey. I understand that very clearly, but other states across the country, ensuring that multifamily financing is widely available throughout the economic cycle. So from my perspective, private capital alone is insufficient to meet the demand for multifamily financing, because during the crisis we saw most private market players exit the market entirely. So, Ms. Ansel, is it your sense that private capital sources have the capacity or the business interest to fill the market need for financing affordable and middle-income multifamily properties?
So private capital is an important part of the competition, but as you've said, especially during the economic crisis, those private capitals retracted and were not available, and today they are not able to serve at full capacity for our capital needs. The GSEs perform a very important role. Most of the private capital is more interested in serving the top-tier markets. The GSEs provide capital for secondary and tertiary markets that private capital is not interested in, whether it be Twin Falls, Idaho, or many small towns. Also, if you look at the details, the GSEs today, 80% of their capital goes to serve residents that are less than 100% of AMI. So a good bit of their capital goes to the middle market and the affordable housing. So GSEs are critical to that.
So if the GSEs were to sell and privatize their multifamily businesses, what impact would this have on the availability and affordability of multifamily housing?
Again, it depends on the formation of that privatization. I think the key in whatever reform happens, as I mentioned before, is that we need the explicit paid-for government guarantee for mortgage-backed securities. That can happen as privatized, but that is critical. We need to recognize the inherent differences in the multifamily business model. That needs to be important in any reform that goes forward. There are successful components. The GSEs performed very well over the last 11 years and during the economic crisis. So maintaining those instruments that have been so successful is critical in reform. And most importantly, we need a very transparent and defined timeline for any period of transition. So privatization works, but the details need to be worked out.
But for what we have seen alone in the private market as it exists now, that has not sufficed to meet the challenge.
That's correct.
Okay, let me say my colleagues covered duty to serve pretty well, but let me just say in response to a comment Mr. DeMarco made to a question on the duty to serve rule not being implemented until recently. Mr. DeMarco, you were in charge of the FHFA and you had 5 years to get this done, and it was not. So, saying that we have only a short window, in my mind, doesn't undercut the responsibility of the duty to serve. I think it is a critical element. Let me go to Mr. Ugalde. As you outlined in your testimony, one of the barriers addressing our affordable housing crisis is the availability of capital to create additional housing supply. And the lack of supply drives up prices and ultimately impacts affordability, particularly for entry-level and first-time home buyers. In the past, I've led efforts to increase the availability of financing for real estate construction loans. In your view, how should we address the supply issue as part of our larger conversation on reforms to the system?
So, first, Senator, thank you for all your help in the past. Very much appreciated. The big issue, we've talked about single-family, multifamily renters and buyers at the end, but we also have a piece that affects our members directly at the beginning of the process: acquisition, development, and construction. Mention that AD&C financing is key, and the more robust we can get that system to react to the needs of our members and builders and developers across the country, the better off we will be. The key to housing affordability is going to be the ability to get land at a fair price. And that usually means everything from density to purchasing at the most affordable rate possible with the utilities and everything brought in. tougher in rural areas, but we have many builders that are up for the task and looking to do it. They just need access to proper financing. So in a nutshell, if we could have, if I were king for a day, I'd do everything that he was referring to, but I'd also look to helping builders and developers in the initial process as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. We have no kings in this country, so that's not going to happen, at least not as of yet. Mr. Chairman, may I have one final brief question? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your courtesy. GSEs can receive duty to serve credit for purchasing loans on small multifamily rental properties of 5 to 50 units. Ms. Ansel, what impact would eliminating the duty to serve rule have on the affordability of that segment of affordable rental options?
We support the duty to serve standards. We think that anything that brings additional access to capital across the rural markets or the markets that are less served is critically important. I think the Chairman Crapo's access ideas may also fill those needs, but we think that anything that we can do to provide additional capital to the rural and underserved markets is critically important.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.